What's up, everybody? Welcome to Hapticast, episode number 40. Hapticast, episode 40 live. My name is Josh Toll, and I am joined, as always, by my good friend, Brett Roberts.
Hello.
HBot has off today. She's undergoing maintenance.
That's right. Thank you guys for joining us for our first ever live version of Hapticast.
That's right. Big day. We kind of decided to do this last night. We both beat Resident Evil Village. Obviously, from the title, you can see that this is all about Resident Evil Village. This is our live review discussion, Hapticast special, whatever the fuck you want to call it, of Resident Evil Village. We are going to be getting into the weeds of the game, folks. Brett and I both beat it. So here's kind of an overview of how today is going to work. We are going to start discussing just our general thoughts about the game, non-spoilers to begin. Okay, we'll put up some text on the screen so you all know either when you're watching live or coming back to it when we're talking spoilers and when we're not. We're going to start with non-spoilers, give some of our general thoughts and impressions, talk about some of the performance and the features that are in the game, and then give you our recommendation. Is it worth buying? What would we score it, grade it? Would we recommend it? Would we not recommend it? And then once we are done that, we will go into a full spoiler section talking about the game and talk about kind of each chapter just in general. Is there anything else that you want to say before we begin, Brett?
Number one, I just adjusted my microphone slightly, turned it up a little bit. Someone said they were having trouble hearing me, so I turned it up.
Yeah, I just raised you as well.
So I'm going to be loud as fuck. All right. The one thing I do want to mention, guys, this is live, so we do want you in the chat. We want you interacting with us.
Yeah.
We want to know what you think. If you're playing the game, let us know in the chat. And also, if you have any questions, you could put them in the chat, and we'll get to them, whenever we get to them. But right before we go into the spoiler section, we're going to do a Q&A where we run through any questions that we missed. Mm-hmm. So that's what we're doing. Let's do it.
Yeah. All right, so let's start with our non-spoiler section. Text is on the screen. Let's get into it now. Brett, what do you think about Resident Evil Village?
I think Resident Evil Village is a great game, and I had a lot of fun with it. I think that it took the story of Resident Evil 7 and made everything come full circle. I think if you didn't play Resident Evil 7, you're doing yourself a disservice. You should truly play 7 before you play 8.
Yeah.
7 was, on our top 50 favorite games of all time list. I believe it was number 17 for me. I just pulled up my list. And Josh, it's on yours as well, pretty close to.
Yeah.
Actually, it might be around 17 as well.
Yeah. They were fairly close. Yeah.
Yeah. So we really liked Resident Evil 7. So naturally, this is a direct sequel, actually, to Resident Evil 7. Mm-hmm. And I think it really tied everything together, not just for the story of the Winters family and Ethan, but for Resident Evil as a whole, which we can't really say much without spoiling the game. So we'll get into that more in the spoiler section. Mm-hmm. But those are my thoughts. I think it was a great game. I had a lot of fun with it. And I think it was beautiful and a lot of awesome set pieces.
Yeah.
So what do you think, Josh?
I echo everything that you say. And I'm going to, my impressions, non-spoiler impressions, can come down to kind of two things. One is I think it does a great job paying not only homage to the entire franchise, right, but also continuing and propelling the story set up in 7 forward more, right? Including when the game is done, right, where the story can go. I'm excited for that. So it pays homage to the previous game, but also previous games in the franchise as a whole, from the characters, from little spicy Easter eggs in there, which are spoilery, which we'll get to actual like story beats, to the gameplay. I think there's always like the two camps of Resident Evil, right? There's the action heavy camp, and then there's the survival horror camp, right? Or the horror camp. And you have people that like both. And I know you and I both probably prefer the survival horror more, but we don't mind games like, Resi 4, which is a little more action heavy in sequences, Resi 3, which is definitely a little more action heavy. We didn't love it, but I don't think there's necessarily one camp that one of us is in and one of us isn't in, right? I think we like both of that. And I think this game does a great job of kind of finding a perfect balance between those different types of gameplay styles. And then I'll give you this. It's my favorite Resident Evil game in the entire franchise. It's my favorite Resident Evil game for a lot of very specific reasons, but a very specific spoiler reasons, which we will get into later. So, and by the way, as you all just saw, Brett might clip in and out occasionally. That's the nature of doing it live sometimes, but you can still hear him. So apologies if that happens, but you know, it is what it is.
So you're telling me I'm turning invisible as I speak?
You did for a brief second, but it's better now.
Okay, no problem. I do want to touch back on that, Josh. The perfect blend of the action and horror, survival horror, couldn't be more correct. This game is not the scariest Resident Evil, nor is it the scariest game. Yeah, I don't really think there's anything in this game that terrified me. I think more so, well, I know when you could get into that. But I think the setting alone is scary, and the world they created is scary. And the situations that the characters are put in are scary.
Right.
There's nothing in this game that is necessarily scary, to me anyway, as a big fan of horror. But the game perfectly blended horror and action and created an experience where I wasn't like, okay, here's the action part, you know what I mean? Here's the horror part. Like with Resident Evil 4, it's very clear when we're going full on action.
Right.
With games like The Evil Within 1, it's very clear, okay, this is the action part.
Right.
That doesn't happen in this.
No, I don't think any section in it, right, which is just a credit to the design of the game, right? No section or area or sequence or set piece or trope, right? Whatever it is, none of it overstays its welcome, right? It's all super focused. It's super clean. It is, they get in, you enjoy it, and it doesn't overstay its welcome, which I think some games it could be like, oh, we really want to do this. And this is this awesome, cool, huge puzzle section. And Resident Evil 8 has puzzle sections, but none of them feel too complicated, too taxing, or too long. And I think you could say that about every section of the game, whether it's more actiony, boss fights, more horror-y, whatever it is, it's all really focused and clean. So
you're right. And I feel like everything has a purpose. In some Resident Evil games, you'll stumble across a puzzle and you're like, oh, here's the puzzle section. I feel like everything was pretty organic in Village. You'd come across the puzzle and it wouldn't just be like, oh, go and find this piece and you put it in. Like everything felt like it was there for a reason.
Right. And the stuff that was puzzly had story elements to it that were incredible, in my opinion. So
yes, it's very true. I don't know if this is kind of moving on from general thoughts and impressions into the performance and features of the game, but I do want to touch on something that some people might not have known about this game, and that is it has almost a Dark Souls, Bloodborne approach to its level design.
Yeah.
In that there is a hub of sorts, which is the village, and you will travel to different areas and come across shortcuts that link you back to where you just came from. And it is very much like Dark Souls in that regard, where you'll go through this whole thing and then you'll come down this path and open a gate that was previously locked. And you're like, holy shit, I am back where I started the game or whatever, So I thought that was really cool. The whole game is very much like Dark Souls inspired, with the world and the castle and the village. And it's got that Bloodborne vibe going on. Right. So, I just thought that was worth mentioning as well.
No, I completely agree to you. And the game lends itself to continued exploration, right? Like you said, like a Dark Souls game, you have something now that makes previous areas kind of were inaccessible before accessible now. And the game pays you via weapons, upgrades, story elements, treasure, money, like whatever it is, to go back and re-explore those areas. And I think that's one of the brilliant things about the actual village kind of hub as it is, right? Is that even as you come back to this area that you've been in since the start, more areas within that area are revealed to you the further you go on in the game. And that's not a new thing in video games, right? But it's done to perfection, in my opinion here. And with moving into the performance and the features, it's worth noting that we both played on PlayStation 5 with ray tracing enabled, correct?
Yep.
Okay. So for me, I didn't have too many performance issues. You know, the ray tracing for this game, I don't feel like it necessarily added too much. You know, there's some shadow and reflection stuff, but it wasn't, you know, anything crazy. I did have some sections though, thinking about like some of the water sections, or I mean, I guess basically anything with like heavy alpha effects, so fire, fog, things like that, where my frame rate, you know, tanked, and I could tell, but it wasn't enough for me to like, you know, have to be like, okay, I got to turn this off because the performance is like piece of shit.
So for me, it's funny to think about, but when a game has great performance, you don't think about it. You know what I mean? You're just kind of playing the game. If it has bad performance, you're going to be like, oh my God, this thing keeps crashing. It keeps taking me out of it. I didn't have any issues with Resident Evil Village at all. Not a single one, not a crash, not an FPS drop that I noticed. You know, the game ran perfect for me. So I don't know what happened there. Maybe I just didn't notice it. But when a game does it well, usually you don't notice it because it's not bringing it to your attention, you know?
I think some people have more, I don't know, are more susceptible, I guess, to noticing FPS drops and things like that.
For sure.
And I am one of those people, which is why I have such a hard time with VR. Is that I'd be like, oh, there goes a frame, and there's another frame, and there's a frame, and I like fixate on it to the point where it like bothers me if I notice it. So,
well, it's funny you mentioned VR, Josh, because we did not get VR for Resident Evil Village, which I know disappointed us and a lot of our subscribers as well.
Yeah. So I mean, with that said, now that we've both beat it, you see why they didn't put VR? You think they still could have done it with VR? What are your thoughts on that?
They still could have done it, even without getting spoilery. There are some segments that cutscenes go into third person, which is obviously a little different. You wouldn't be able to do that necessarily in VR. But for the most part, the game stays in first person literally the whole entire time. So could they have done it? Absolutely. Why didn't they do it? I'll tell you why. PSVR 2 is not ready yet. You can't make PSVR work with PS5 games right now. There's no PS5 game that works with PSVR 1. So they would have had to delay the next gen version in order to make this thing playable in VR. And I don't think they were willing to do that.
Makes sense
to me.
Take anyway. Yeah. I still think the game could work in VR. I definitely think there's sections where maybe it's almost too sprawling or action heavy that might be clunky in VR, that maybe they didn't want to sacrifice their vision to, you know, try to get the whole thing playable in VR, like Resident Evil 7 was. And I think from a setting standpoint too, Resident Evil 7 is much more confined, you know, smaller than 8 is.
I will say there are many sections in this game that I would have loved to experience in VR.
Oh, absolutely. For sure.
So many cool parts to have in VR.
For sure.
So one thing I want to touch on now, we played on the PlayStation 5 version. Obviously, the DualSense controller has the HD rumble and the adaptive triggers. A lot of cool features there with the DualSense. How did you like the adaptive triggers while you were playing the game?
Mostly, I think they were fine. I think some guns were way too much. Like the sniper rifle, the first time I was like, this is ridiculous. My fingers are going to be so tired. Now, if you've watched our live streams, listen, you know, the sniper rifle is my weapon of choice. And I was using it probably more than any other weapon in the game. And it's a little much. It was a little too much. But what I will say on the flip side of that is I think it did a good job of making every weapon feel distinct. With the trigger pulls, both aiming and shooting. And, you know, if I was in the heat of the moment, I could tell kind of which gun I was using based off of that. I also, what is a really cool subtle touch is that when you're empty, right, there's no tension on your trigger pull. So you can be like, oh, I got to reload without having to like look or go through menus or anything like that. So,
yeah, so I actually liked it. Again, I liked how like you said, it made every gun feel different. And I actually think kind of similar to your point with Resident Evil 4, how the stop and shoot type thing added to the horror of the game. I feel like the trigger pulls added to the horror of the game because there were moments where I needed to quickly get my gun out and shoot. And like I had to like push, and I'm pushing hard as shit just to make this gun aim down the sight, and then I have to push to make it shoot. It added to the tension for me.
Yeah.
Especially in some of the boss fights that are quick and fast, and there's something chasing you with an axe,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to quickly, shoot your shotgun off on them.
Mm-hmm.
There is one thing though that kept happening with my DualSense controller, and it was when the game would leave your control and go from your playing to a cutscene or something where you wouldn't necessarily move. I felt the controller just let up on the triggers,
Mm-hmm.
and it made a noise. Like, it was like pop, and like my triggers bounced, like it had a little bit of tension, and then it went pop, as if like it was letting go, essentially.
Right.
I feel like other games have done that a lot more fluidly and cleanly. If I don't know how to put it, like the transition from the triggers working like that to not working like that was a lot smoother.
Yeah.
In this, it just like they were like, all right, let go, and they let go of the adaptive trigger shit.
Yeah.
So
they could have definitely implemented better design and using what is there in the cutscenes, like a lot of games have done.
Yeah.
So I do want to bring up one thing while we're still in this performance / feature section. Something that the game has gotten a lot of flack for, and something that I would agree with. But for me, I can work around it. There is like 0 accessibility features in the game, like 0. There's no colorblind options for me. There's no like the subtitles are terrible. You can hardly read them in some sections because they're so small and white with like no outline. So as far as accessibility goes, the game's pretty shit when it comes to that. And I don't know how. I guess maybe it's probably because it's a Japanese company. Honestly, they are historically not good with shit like that and don't care. So I don't know. I think that's worth merits kind of a conversation. That it's 2021, you still can't put basic accessibility features in the game, but I don't know.
Yeah. It's a great point. Another thing I want to talk about is there's 2 things. Number one, the Resident Evil 4 inspirations and features that were added from Resident Evil 4, the inventory system.
Yep.
I feel like it was a great homage to Resident Evil 4. But I don't think that they took it to the point that they needed to take it to for it to truly be Resident Evil 4's inventory system. By that, I mean grenades stacked, healing items would stack. I truly never had any moment where I was like, I have no room. Like I never, that whole thing never happened with me.
Yeah, no, I agree. It was something that they put in there, but that didn't feel necessary. Or as impactful as it does in Resi 4, which did it so well. And I think part of that has to do with grenade stacking. I think part of that has to do with, I don't know. I feel like I never was missing out on something by not having a specific weapon type. Whereas like in Resident Evil 4, like you need a rocket launcher. Like you need that rocket launcher a couple times. I don't feel like in this game there was any boss fight or enemy where I was like, oh, I need this gun. I feel like I could kill them handily with whatever I had ammo for at the time.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree with you. It wasn't as weighty. It was there as like an homage, but it didn't matter. I don't know.
Literally, like they just put it in and they didn't really care to. It almost felt like it was an afterthought. Like they didn't go all the way with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Another feature that they added to this game was hunting and cooking, which again is another feature that I feel like they added and didn't necessarily have much weight. I feel like I explored really well and I went around the entire map and I did everything I possibly could in my 12 hours with the game or so. And I feel like I didn't come across enough animals to make all of the dishes. And then I had extra meat that wouldn't apply to any of the dishes that I had available to cook. I don't know if that makes sense, but I don't know. I like the mechanic of being able to increase your health and your stamina and all of that. And I like that you have to hunt to get it. I mean, it's cool and it fits the village aesthetic. But for me, I just felt like it was kind of a, tacked on thing that didn't quite work for me.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. It never felt necessary.
Yeah.
Now maybe that changes at harder difficulties. For you played on regular difficulty, I played on casual. Don't at me. I played on casual because I didn't want to really grind my fucking cock into a wall. I just wanted to enjoy the game. But it never there. I feel like there's a lot of superfluous elements that they added to this game that are fine. Like they're cool ideas, right? Were nice homages, but they never mattered almost.
Yeah.
Christian says in the chat, on the topic of accessibility and the settings in the game, were there any that you guys felt were necessary to apply that were in the game, like turning off motion blur or something? Okay, yeah, that's actually a great point, Christian. I turned off the camera, like turned off the sway, the bob, all the shit with the gun where you'd like walk and it's like this, and the aim acceleration. I turned all of that shit off. It all fucked me up. It was bad. I turned aim assist off. I think all of those features are shit and garbage, and I don't really know why they're on by default. Like I don't when I'm playing a first person game, right? I understand it might be there to ground you or whatever, but I don't want to see the gun go when I'm fucking walking, dude. It's annoying. It's annoying.
So I actually didn't turn any of them off.
Oh, you're so bad.
When I played the demo, the village demo, it was super jarring, and I turned it off. The motion, the bob, when you would like, the sway or whatever, I turned that off. In the base game, I just kept it all on. I didn't have any problem. I didn't get sick. A lot of people were saying they got motion sickness. I didn't get it. I was fine. I was completely fine. But I understand why people would want to turn those things off, because for some reason it hit me when I was playing the village demo. It just didn't hit me again when I played the full game.
My thing is, in a game where ammo is the resource, right? Mm-hmm. Why do I want extra effects, animations on my screen that are going to distract me from just aiming down sights and shooting?
Oh, that's a great point. They're just trying to make a more cinematic experience, I guess.
Well, I understand that. And I think there's an argument to be made that, yeah, that probably grounds the character more in the world. Yeah. But I don't need it.
Speaking of ammo, what did you think of the crafting feature that they added in this game?
Again, I think it's cool. I would have almost rather them just take all of those crafting items that they had in the world and just make it ammo instead. Just make it ammo and healing items, and that also is part of that inventory argument that we made, right? Is that okay? You get herbs and all this other stuff, but they don't take up inventory space. They go into your crafting thing. So having to barter with yourself about what items you're keeping, and you have to craft healing items and crafting larger healing items and things like that. It never, it just kind of detracted from it and never felt super necessary. I would have rather it just been regular healing items and ammo on the ground. And I also think, but I don't like that the health indicator. I hated it in this game. I never fucking understood what the fuck was going on. Probably because guess what? It goes back to the colorblind thing. It's all the same fucking color to me. I never knew what my health was. I was like, I don't know if I'm dying. I don't know if I'm good. But every time I got hit, I was like, I'm just going to heal because I don't really know where my health is at. I would have much rather preferred it was like Resident Evil 4, where it's a bar and it's very clear where your health is.
Yeah, I feel, again, this was like a cinematic choice where they wanted to make your screen as clear as possible. Mm-hmm. Your health only pops up when you take damage, really.
Right.
And it's very quick too. It shows up and it like fades away.
Yeah.
I think that the only time I would heal was when my screen turned red and I was like, I am gonna die, and I would heal really quickly. So yeah, I agree with you there. Yeah. One more thing for the performance aspect, Josh. Mm-hmm. In no way is this game a one-take game, but I feel like it did a very good job of hiding loading screens and almost being a one-take game. Yeah. It's not until like some of the later chapters where they take you out of it. Mm-hmm. But it's like a first-person game that almost is one take, which I thought was pretty impressive.
Yeah, I don't actually think I saw any loading screens at all. And if I did, it was like a fade down and fade up.
Yeah.
At least that I can remember, which is a good thing, because if I can't remember it, then clearly it didn't take the track.
I think a lot of the times they hid the loading screens with ladders, like you'd be climbing or going down a ladder.
Oh yeah,
or an elevator. You'd be going on an elevator, and it would load the level.
And you could see that too. I noticed some hitching when I entered new areas, right, which would be indicative of like, okay, that's loading in. Not that it's that really detracts from anything. It's just obviously you can't have the entire world loaded at one time.
That's right.
So, all right. before we move into the spoiler section, Brett, let's finish off our non-spoilers by saying, from each of us, is it worth buying? Do we recommend it? And if you had to give it a rating, what would you do?
Okay. You want me to go first?
Yeah, go ahead.
So if you're a fan of Resident Evil, if you're a fan of survival horror, this is a no-brainer. You have to pick it up for the story alone. The gameplay is great. The setting is fantastic. The set pieces are great. The characters are great. It's a Resident Evil game unlike any other Resident Evil game.
Mm-hmm.
And I even say that with Resident Evil 7 as well. It's even more different than 7 was. Would I recommend buying it? It's a tough sell. The game is $70 if you're playing on the PlayStation 5, or $80 if you're getting the deluxe edition, which I did. So I'm coming at this. Is it worth it for $80, which is my experience?
Mm-hmm.
I say, yeah. I think that this is a, solid on normal difficulty, a solid 12-hour cinematic survival horror action adventure game. The story does some crazy things, some twists and turns. It ties everything together. 7, 8, and the whole franchise of Resident Evil. There is some recency bias. I did just beat it last night, so I am a little more high on it than I might be in a week or two. This game is a 4.5 out of 5 or a 5. I think it was a 5 going into this, but as we talked about some of our, small gripes with it, it lowered it down to like a 4.5. Mm-hmm. It's absolutely worth it. If you're a casual gamer, you're going to get 12 hours out of this thing, or even like how many hours did it take you?
About the same, a little over 10.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you're
super easy difficulty, by the way.
Yeah. If you're going into this thinking you're going to get this super, super, super long thing, you're not. If you don't have a lot of money and, you have to get the most bang for your buck in terms of like the gameplay and how much you could do in it. Sure, you can replay the story over and over again. You can play it on different difficulties. You could even play the mercenaries mode, which you unlock afterwards. But again, I truly don't know if it's, going to be value to you. If you're a fan of this kind of stuff, absolutely. If you're a fan of 7, no brainer, you got to play it. So yeah, that's where I'm at.
I agree. I absolutely would recommend it. I also paid $80 for it, for the digital deluxe version of it. I think it's worth it. I think there's a lot of replayability as well. Like with a lot of Resident Evil games, you can go back on higher difficulties. You can go back and get stuff that you missed. If you're a completionist, trophies, achievements, whatever it might be. There's a lot there. You also have the mercenaries mode, and all of it leads to like unlocking new weapons and stuff like that, which then you can use in the campaign, including a fucking lightsaber that you can get a double-bladed one too. So there's stuff like that. So there's some replayability aspect of it there. I would recommend it for fans of Resident Evil franchise. I think you will be very happy with the directions that the story goes and things that you see in the campaign, as well as all of the different types of gameplay styles. My rating, I came into this being like a 5. I would say, probably more like a 4.5 or 4.75 now, thinking about some of the things that we just discussed. So there you have it. Haptic Intel recommends it. It's got our seal of approval on it. Play it. Yep. We like it. Brett.
What's up?
It's spoiler time.
All right. So this is very exciting because you and I kind of were playing together at the same time for a little bit, and then we both finished the game by ourselves. So I haven't talked to you about really the end of the game at all.
That's right. So before we hop in, let's just, everybody, we are about to get into spoilers. You can see it on the screen. This is a spoiler section coming up. If you have not beaten the game or don't want to get spoiled, leave now. Go away. Please go away right now. This is your final warning. Spoilers are about to happen.
We're literally going to go through every chapter in the game and talk about it. So
right now.
Yeah.
Spoilers. Okay. Brett, we start off the game, right, in the prologue. You are Ethan, about 3 years after the events of Resident Evil 7. You and Mia are together, and you have a kid, Rose.
That's right. What is there to say? You got relocated to Europe.
That's right.
Because of everything that happened at the Baker house.
Mm-hmm.
Ryan and Christian. See ya. Very bad time to join. Yes, we're getting into the spoiler section. This will be up on our channel afterwards, though, if you want to check it out, Ryan.
Yeah.
So they relocate. Chris Redfield relocates you to Europe.
Right.
And you're living your life with Ethan's living his life with his wife and his daughter.
That's right.
Everything's going great until
Chris Redfield fucking
comes in the house.
Cops in there and literally fucking melts Mia. And you literally just watch her get obliterated. So you just put your kid down, right? And Chris comes in, they fucking eviscerate Mia, and you're like, what the fuck is going on? Right? You don't know.
Chris like is there to protect you.
Yes.
And your family.
Which, as he says at the end of the game, yeah, he probably should have just told you from the get-go everything, but obviously then you wouldn't have a game. Then you wouldn't have any mystery behind it. You wouldn't know what was going on. And Chris is like, Ethan, we need your daughter. We need you. You're coming with us. Mia's dead. We don't know what the hell is going on. He pulls you out, and then you wake up in this abysmal place later. Now, two things, Brett, before we move on from the prologue, because I know it's the shortest section. I noticed two notes in the house. Well, a note in a book. Okay. Mm-hmm. One, Ethan makes some kind of offhanded comment that he like underwent military training or something like that. In his study, there is a book about firearms use and crafting from somebody who I believe is related to the weapons guy in Resident Evil 2. I forget his name off the top of my head, but I recognized the last name. I was like, why does that name sound familiar? I looked it up. It's the same last name as the weapons smith guy that made you that handgun in Resident Evil 2.
So everything kind of comes together.
Mm-hmm. So I thought that was interesting. And then the other, I just forgot what the other one that I wanted to talk about was.
Well, I'll mention the storybook that the game opens up with.
Oh, yeah.
Very integral part to the game. You find out pretty much as you're playing that everything that was in that book and that fairy tale is, about the journey you go on.
Right.
So, that was pretty cool to see too.
Yeah. I forget. It was fucking important. I should have wrote it down. Maybe I'll remember it as we talk. Anyway, so the prologue ends, and then you go into the village for the very first time, and you are presented with a fucking ridiculous sequence that's not possible, where you're just fucking running around this village and there's werewolves everywhere.
Yep. Crazy. Scary. One of the scariest parts in the game.
Yeah.
They're terrifying. These lichens, they're not good at all, and they will fuck you up. You make your way, you find other people, you find this girl. Her dad is injured, and they need help, and you got to get them inside this like stronghold house to keep them safe. Well, wouldn't you know it, everyone in that house is bad, and so is the dad, because the dad starts turning into a fucking lichen. Which, Josh, now that I'm thinking about it, you don't turn into lichens by getting bit by lichens, by like a werewolf. It's all by experiments. So was her dad always going to be a lichen? Was he, you know what I mean?
I don't know. I didn't think
at the time you're like, oh, we got attacked, and now he's turning into one.
Right. You're probably right though. I didn't think about that too much when it was happening, but you're right. Clearly, and you know what? The lady's house that you go into that kind of shelters you very briefly before everything hits the fan. She said Mother Miranda has always protected us. So I wonder if they kind of all didn't have it in them, right? Or were experimented on at some point, and then like Miranda kind of suppressed it somehow. Because clearly something happened, which we know has to do with Rose and Ethan's baby, right? This whole grandiose plan that she's had since fucking the beginning, the inception, which we'll get to, probably propelled that. So you're probably right that he might have always had that, and then something happened where, now he's turning.
Yeah. Well, her dad turns into a fucking lichen and attacks everybody. The house catches on fire. Very bad. Ethan escapes, and he's like, why does everyone I come across die?
Yeah. And I will say, up to that point, Brett, I was like, wow, is this not good? Like, is this, I wasn't loving what I was seeing. And it's twofold. One, you didn't get a lot of actual playtime besides the one village sequence, which is impossible to beat the first playthrough, I feel like, which is, it's
What, when the
purpose.
Lycans are...
Yeah, it's purposely designed that way. And I don't know why in the moment I was thinking that I needed to kill everybody, but I just felt like I have no ammo. This is ridiculous. How the fuck am I supposed to beat this? And it actually made me lower the difficulty because I died at one point.
That is one of the biggest gripes I have with the whole game is there are so many sections where you're not sure whether or not you're supposed to be killing something or if you're just supposed to survive.
Right.
And
Which
you just waste ammo.
exactly, which is an issue because, you know, I would have rather it just been a cutscene, although I don't know. I go back and forth on that. But anyway, and up until that point where you like jump out the window, right? After the house burns down and all that's fucked. And I'm like, damn, the voice acting from Ethan is not good. Like, it's not good, right? And I was like, is it a bit? Is he like doing a bit? Is it like supposed to be like on the nose like that? And I think after like another hour or so with the game, I'm like, okay, it's definitely a bit. It's supposed to be like that. It's so ridiculous because he's getting fucked so hard all the time by literally everything, which at the end of the game was like the whole point of it, right? Was like the entire point. So,
no, absolutely. So moving forward, you know, you finally make it to the castle, Dimitrescu, and you get captured by Heisenberg, correct?
yeah. Mm-hmm.
So Heisenberg takes you to Mother Miranda, and you're met with Mother Miranda. You're met with Lady Dimitrescu. You're met with Heisenberg. You're met with the doll lady, who I don't remember her name.
Donna.
Sure. And you're met with Moreau,
Right.
who is a abomination of a creature.
Yes.
And pretty much Mother Miranda says, all right, well, I'm going to leave you to Heisenberg. He's in charge. He's going to kill you, basically. And everyone's pissed off because they wanted to kill you.
Mm-hmm.
You do this section where you're just running throughout the whole thing. I thought that was a pretty cool section where you're just running away from everything as it's crashing down on you.
As you're handcuffed.
Yes, as you're handcuffed. And there was a segment there that really pissed me off where this wall was coming towards you, and I didn't know what the fuck I was supposed to do. I died probably 5 times.
You got to tuck in the little corner. Yeah.
So that really pissed me off.
Yeah.
And then finally, what happens? After you escape,
then you get into the castle. So you escape and you go up through the catacombs into the castle.
Okay.
For the first time.
So Josh, castle. You know, we played it in the demo.
Right.
I thought I was going to be spending a majority of my game here.
Yeah.
Much like Resident Evil 7, where you're in the house and it just expands and expands and expands.
Right.
This thing was like a fucking labyrinth. And every time I would unlock a new area, I would be like, shit, man, I got to go explore something else and come back and explore this. I really liked the castle. And I thought, like I said, I was going to be spending most of my time here until I started killing Dimitrescu's daughters like it was fucking nothing.
Yeah. Like they were water, dude. Like fucking nothing. Literally like one after another after another.
And I was like, damn, is this game that short? And then I finally, I mean, I'm skipping over a lot here, but you finally get to the fight with Dimitrescu. And I'm like, she's not going to die here, is she? She fucking died.
Yeah, you kill her. But by the way, her fucking boss design was fucking slick. It was not good looking. Like it literally so the whole castle part, right, felt like you're playing like a Dark Souls game. And then especially the fight with her on the roof, I'm like, this is a fucking Dark Souls game with guns, dude. Like that's exactly what this is. And it's so slick. And there's, you know, she has different obviously stages, and then you crash through everything, right? And then you get this little fucking jizzy looking vial, and you're like, what the fuck is this? It opens up, and then you can go back to the village. Is there anything else you want to talk about in the castle before we continue? I mean, it was slick, but I just
thought I was going to be spending most of the game there, and that was it.
I just think it's funny about how hyped people got over Dimitrescu, and then she's in the game for like, I don't know, the first 2 hours.
Yeah.
And then that's it. You kill her. She's done. Yep. But I mean, that's more so people's hype and then the marketing machine kind of capitalizing on that. But she served her purpose. She's cool. You find out some interesting stuff between her and Heisenberg as well. But she's just fodder, essentially.
There's 4 of them.
Yeah.
And it's the four we saw previously in the room where
Right.
you're meeting Mother Miranda for the first time.
Right. So you get done the castle, you go out, you go back to the Duke, and the Duke's like, hey, like, brush that jizz off on there, son. And then you find out that you're literally holding the amalgamation of Rosemary, your daughter's head, in this little vial. And then you can take it, and there's this altar part where the Duke is now, which leads back to the village. But there's like 4 little sections in it with the umbrella logo in the middle. And you can put the vials in there, right? And the Duke's like, yeah, you got to get all the vials to put her back together and then do some sort of fucking ritual thing or whatever.
Yep.
But
so it means that there's 4 different areas you have to go to, 4
right.
different bosses you have to kill essentially to get them.
Right. Which the game establishes very early on, and then you realize, okay, that's what this is. It's going to be me tracking down these, I don't know, these fucking leaders or whatever, right, of this area that are all related to Mother Miranda, part of her family, which is a very loose term. And then you got to go basically collect them. So you get back. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was just going to say, I love how each area was so different.
Mm-hmm.
And I love how it was all connected to the center. Again, it was like the Dark Souls thing where you go down a path, you're in a completely different area, it leads back to the village again. So every area, the house where the dolls were,
mm-hmm.
the castle, the bayou area
mm-hmm.
with Moreau
mm-hmm.
and the factory, everything felt and looked different. And it was fun to, like, when you finally got there, you're like, oh shit, what am I about to get into? Kind of thing.
So you do the castle, you come back, you talk with the Duke, you do the altar, you visit the village for the second time. The Duke makes you go get a key thing, and then you come back, and then you have the next key to go to the next area. You go to the next area, and it's House Beneviento. It's this house, you go in, there's dolls, it's bad looking, and then you go to like the fucking depths of this house. And then what happens?
I know that you're deathly afraid of things like Chucky and dolls. So I know that this kind of fucked you up.
Yeah. Well, before that, though, when you first get in there, it's not terrible. I'm like, oh, there's some bad looking dolls here. I don't like it.
Yeah.
And you did see the one doll, right? Because Donna was called the doll maker or whatever it is. You saw that in like the scene a couple before where you're meeting all these characters, right? That you're about to go fight. And she has a very bad looking and sounding doll. Annie, it's called. It's bad, right? Angie. Mm-hmm. Very, very bad. And there's a picture on the stairs in the house when I got in there the first time I was exploring it, and it's Donna and Angie looks so fucking bad in that picture. I looked at it and I was like, wow, that's terrible. I hope I don't have to fucking deal with her, which we'll get to. So you explore the house, eventually you find a way to the basement. You get to like this basement level, you go in, and there is a mannequin with all different parts on it on this table in the basement, right? Which there's a picture next to it of Mia, and then you basically, for the next 20 minutes or so, 20-30 minutes, are taking apart this mannequin, finding different items to take parts of the mannequin off. You get film strips, and you get this radio communication constantly over and over and over again.
It's an escape room.
Exactly. It's an escape room. And I actually really loved this section. I could see that people might not like it because it's basically just one big puzzle section. But I love it in the sense that, first of all, it's a nice break, right, from the action-heavy stuff that you just did, right?
Yep.
And then you come through here, you have to kind of use your brain a little bit. It's not anything too complicated or crazy. You do some exploring. You find out a lot of stuff about Mia. You find out, like, wow, Mia kind of sounds like she's not good, right? Like,
she's
why
holding something from you?
Yeah, like she's trying to hide something. Like, why would she do this? Why would she like risk our kid? Like all this stuff. You start asking yourself a lot of questions. There's film strips, and then you do this whole thing, and then Brett, it literally turns into the demo. First of all, it feels like PT, and then it literally turns into the fucking, like, the Silent Hills. Remember that, like, teaser trailer or whatever with like the thing chasing you through the hallways or whatever? It literally turns into that, where there's just this big abomination fetus chasing you around.
That was actually one of the scariest parts in the whole game for me.
Yeah, and it's, first of all, it's revealed so well, right? Like, you think, okay, I'm done. I got everything I need to. I have this fucking fuse key. I'm gonna go back up. I'm gonna take the elevator back up, and then that's it. You start walking up the stairs. You start walking up the stairs to go, and you hear a fucking cry, and then just this monstrosity abomination starts chasing you, and it's on, and it's disgusting. It looks bad, and it's so dark.
It sounds bad.
Yeah. I think that this chapter, right, with Anna or Donna and Angie, the house, Bien Viento, all of it with the baby is like actually scary. Like this is like the horror section of the game.
I would agree.
But the baby chases you around, and then eventually, I forget what happens to the baby. You kill it.
You get an elevator.
Oh, right. You escape it and leave it down there.
And then the next part of the game is just
worse.
You're in a room just with dolls everywhere, and Angie is basically like, find me, and you have to go around and find her.
Right.
And if you don't find her in time, these dolls will get up and literally attack you.
Yeah. This section of the game, almost, I feel like I was having a constant anxiety attack playing this section of the game. Like I was so sweaty, my heart was pounding. I wanted to like not look at the screen. I was running around screaming, like ready to cry. Like I was not good playing this section. I really don't like dolls. There's not a lot of things in horror that like fuck me up, like legitimately scare me. Dolls, I can't do. And this tapped into my fear of dolls so well. I was like shaking playing this section of the game. I wanted it to be done and over. I was so tired of it. It was terrible. It was awful.
For me, it was just like, these things are fucking annoying, and she's fucking annoying, and I want to kill her.
Yeah. And you do. You fucking stab her over and over again in the head with scissors. But like the dolls' heads are shaking, they're moving, they're contorting weird, the laughs, the sounds. It's a legitimately frightening sequence.
Well, you later find out that Donna's true power is like psychic powers.
Right.
And she causes other people to have hallucinations. So you find out that really everything was a hallucination. The dolls, however, were alive, and she was controlling them by putting the what is it called? The little creature inside the doll's head. And that's how the dolls were actually moving around and whatnot.
Right. So you finish the dolls, you leave the house, you go back to the village for the third time. Yep. And then there's another little conversation with the Duke. He gives you like he's playing with the fucking doll when you go back. And then you can go to the graveyard and get this piece. And then this is an optional part, but I know we both did it. You get this piece to kind of go put back on a gravestone in that same area where the house was.
To get a treasure.
Right, to get a treasure, and you fight this fucking big fucking thing with a hammer.
Yep. It was hard. It was very hard. I had not a good time with it.
I just shot him over and over and over again in the head with a sniper. You could kind of cheese him on the path. Yeah. Like you could lead him up the path back and forth, but
yeah, he was not fun. I did not have a good time with him. And I found that what you get out of it was not really worth it, but no. It was a side boss, and it was cool to fight him. So.
Yeah. So then you do that, and then the next one is Moreau, right? Which is like this windmill swampy area, and holy fuck, man. I think this next boss fight in Moreau's area at the end of it is probably the hardest in the game.
Really?
Yeah, I just feel like the acidic jizz that rains down from the heavens really fucked me up. I don't know.
I actually had no problem at all. I beat it my first try.
Yeah. No, I did too. I'm just saying comparatively, I feel like it might have been the hardest.
Gotcha.
For me, I don't know. But anyway, so you go in there. There's this windmill. You have to get this cog thing that you've been, you found other areas in the game that need it. You go through it, and then you're on the swamp. And basically, there's like this chase sequence, right? / on the fly puzzle that you have to solve while you're running through the swamps with all these different, platforms and, piers and boards and stuff like that. Yeah. Oh wait, didn't I miss? There was a section before that, right? Where you're underground and there's a boat, or is that after?
Yeah. No, that was before. It's a really short, small section. It's not really worth mentioning. You basically find Moreau and you grab the last or the third flask
Right.
with rosemary in it, and then you get to a section where Moreau transforms into the giant fish,
Right.
which you later find out that he has no control over when it happens. It just happens,
Mm-hmm.
and he turns into a giant fucking monster fish, very similar to Delago from Resident Evil 4.
Yeah. Which now thinking back, I mean, we'll get to it because this is the next section. But thinking, or the insinuation that kind of Mother Miranda has been involved with all of this shit since the very outset of the initial, outbreak and all of it, is interesting to think about.
Yeah, and you also discover that Moreau, well, actually, were the notes? No, the notes were from Moreau. He was experimenting on the villagers and putting
Right.
things inside of them and turning them into lichens
Right.
and trying to do stuff for Mother Miranda to gain her love and admiration.
Right. Hang on to that, 'cause that's an interesting point right there too, which we'll talk about more with Heisenberg.
Yep.
But anyway, so yeah, you do that, you find a boat, you go through this thing, you solve the puzzle. There's the chase sequence with the fucking abomination fish. You get through all that, you get the thing that you need, and then you fight Moreau. And it's not good. It's like a very confined boss arena with a lot of destructible stuff. Whatever, it fucking shoots jizz at you from forward, from the sky. It charges you. It's not good.
Not good.
You fight Moreau, and then you go back to the village for the fourth time. Right?
Yeah, and you actually get a message from Heisenberg, and he's like, "Yo, man, like we can work
Right.
together. I'll give you the fucking flask with your daughter in it. Just come see me."
Right.
So you go back to the village, you fight a couple of lichens,
Mhm.
and eventually you find yourself at the factory.
Right. There is a interesting part before the factory though. That side path.
Yeah.
With the fuck was it? The mill, or whatever it was. The part where there's like the second, mini boss.
The left path, the right
left
path.
Yeah, whatever it's called. There's a treasure in there, but there was the note in there. I remember there being something important about the note that was in there, and I can't remember. I should have written it down beforehand, but I read that note and I was like, oh, that's really interesting. And I forget what it was.
It was a lab. It was the secret lab of Moreau in that village, in that side village where the werewolf attacks you, the big werewolf.
Yeah.
And all those crows. You find a note that basically says that this was his lab. So yeah.
But anyway, then you go to Heisenberg's factory, and I have seen a lot of criticism about the factory. I think the factory is really fucking cool. I think it's super.
Lost.
Really?
Yeah, I got lost there, and it really triggered me.
I think it's super distinct from the other areas. Like all the areas are distinct, but I think this one especially is so different.
It's huge. It's fucking huge.
It is big.
The level is fucking huge. They do a lot of cool stuff with, you start at the very bottom and you have to work your way up. Where I got stuck was, instead of outright giving you items, they give you the molds where you have to actually melt the metal to create it. And at one point you're in a completely new area and they give you 2 molds and they want you to go all the way back to the thing. Dude, I got lost. I could not figure out how to get to it. Was like MB4 or 4BM or something. Like, I could not find out where the fuck that thing was, but I did it, obviously. There's some really cool enemies and a progression of enemies that you see as Heisenberg is experimenting with these people. At first, you just see, the typical little pleb enemies that you saw at Castle Dimitrescu, but they have little things on their heads. Then you come across dudes that have like giant things on their arms and you have to shoot their chests.
Right.
And then all of a sudden they have armor. And then all of a sudden they fucking have rockets. And eventually you fight the giant wind turbine.
Yeah. Right before that, though, you have a very cool conversation with Heisenberg.
That's right.
Before he punches down. Now, I want to say this. I think Heisenberg might be my favorite character in the game. And that's not necessarily that he's the most important or the most intriguing. His voice actor just fucking kills it, in my opinion. And he's so, like, charismatic and intriguing, right? And you really, I think, out of all of the bosses, right? These
The children.
the whatever you want to call them. I think he's the most interesting and the most quote unquote fleshed out. He's also in the game the longest, which makes sense. I know like Dimitrescu liked her daughters, and there was that whole thing, and she gets pissed off when you kill him, blah, blah, whatever. But he is like really intriguing because you like it makes you like sympathize or understand him for a minute, where he's like, hey, like I didn't choose this. Like she's like Mother Miranda's fucked up. Like she forced us all into this. Like she makes us compete for her like power or like law, like all this crap. He's like, yo, let's fucking team up, yo, and like let's go fucking take her out. You can have your daughter. I don't give a shit. But like I'm gonna use your daughter to do so.
Yeah,
It's like, why would Ethan agree to that? But it's really really interesting, and he gives you a lot of backstory. And then when Ethan's like, yeah, no, he's like, all right, yo, I fucking offered it to you. He goes to push you down the thing. He's like, one more chance, brother.
I love that segment.
Nah. All right.
I love that segment because not only is he like, all right, fine, you don't want to do it. He kicks you, he grabs you and holds on to you. Mm-hmm. He's like, this is your last chance. And Ethan's like, just fucking like, let me go. And Ethan lets go.
Yeah.
And the only thing holding him up from falling is Heisenberg.
Right.
And Heisenberg's like, all right, well, you don't want to know what the fuck's down there then. And he just lets Ethan go.
Yeah. So you do that, you fight this fucking abomination thing, which is just like a mini boss in hindsight, through this like really tight corridor, and he fucking breaks walls and shit. And then
you have to use him to make that arena bigger, really.
Essentially, yeah. So you handle him, and then you go out, and who's there?
Chris Redfield.
Mr. Chris Redfield. And
who
holy
finally
shit,
decides to tell you what the fuck is going on.
This all could have been avoided if Chris would have just said something at the beginning of the game. So you talk to Chris. He's making this fucking thing. Yeah. I don't know what you want to call it, but it's slick.
It's a vehicle of some sort.
The vehicle that you were going to use in a minute. But anyway, you talk to Chris. He gives you a lot of like expository dialogue about what's going on, why he did it, that it wasn't really Mia.
Mia's not dead.
Mia's not dead. Like, it's Mother Miranda being a fucking bitch. All this other stuff. But what's interesting thinking back now to this sequence, right, is how much Chris is like, Ethan, I just kind of want you to stay out of this. Like, you have no business being here, whatever it is. Comparing it to how little each of them kind of knew about the other one at that moment. Because Chris knows, like, all the information about Mia and, like, Mother Miranda and stuff like that. But, like...
Eve and Rosemary and everything.
Right. But Ethan is, like, going through his own thing, right? He has been there fighting. Like, he knows how to handle all of them now. But also, he's, like... invincible? Like,
yeah,
my man can't be killed. He literally had his arm chopped off. He fucking stuck it back on with some spit. Like, he's gonna get his heart ripped out anyway. So you do that, and Chris is like, whatever, like, try not to cause a ruckus, even though he gives you something with fucking rocket launcher and a machine gun on it, and it's just so ridiculous, man.
Yep.
You get on that thing, you go out, you're fighting some shit, and then you have the Heisenberg boss fight.
Really cool boss fight.
Awesome boss fight. Such a slick boss fight. First of all, using that thing was such a nice change of pace, and just fucking him up. And then it gets screwed. Like, you get knocked off of it at one part, and then you're fighting him a little bit with guns. And he picks you up
in the air.
Yeah, he picks you up
on the thing.
He like puts you in like a tornado thing, and then you like get back in the thing like you said, and then he like catches it, and you just fuck him up with the.
Dude, the parts where you're above him just shooting down are so slick.
Yeah.
They were so cool.
Yeah. It's like to your point, way back at the beginning of our conversation, like some of the set pieces and stuff like that were really, really, really nicely done, but it didn't like dominate that fight. You know what I mean? Like, there was a lot of elements to it. Very, very varied kind of fight within the fight itself, which is cool.
Yeah. So then you kill Heisenberg.
Yep.
And Miranda shows up.
Yep.
And it's revealed that not only, well, it was already revealed, but it was revealed that Mia, that you saw in the beginning of the game, was Miranda,
right,
living in your house with you. And also the old woman, the old hag that you've been seeing throughout the whole game, was Miranda as well.
Right.
Which is an interesting reveal. Very similar. I don't know if you remember this, Josh, but in Resident Evil 7, there's an old lady in a wheelchair. And the whole time was actually Eve.
That's right.
So that was pretty cool too.
Yeah.
So you find out all this stuff about Miranda. She's basically like, listen, I had a daughter that died from the Spanish flu. No, Christian's in the chat. We're muted, so he can't hear us, but we're still doing spoilers, so don't listen. This is actually probably the biggest spoiler part in the whole
we're
thing.
literally at the very end of the game.
Stay away. So yeah, Miranda reveals that she had a daughter, died of the Spanish flu, and she's doing all of this, literally everything she's doing in the village, all these experiments she's done is to bring back her daughter, and she's going to use Rosemary to do it
as a vessel for it.
So you find out. Well, let's move on. Let's talk about the Chris segment.
Well, first of all, you get your still beating heart ripped out.
Oh yeah, you die. Ethan dies.
Yeah, Ethan Winters dies.
Yeah,
kind of. He literally has a still like my jaw was like on the floor. I was like, okay, this game is making like very distinctive choices about where the franchise is going.
It even goes third person.
Yeah,
cutscene,
which is the first time in the entire game that it does that, which is cool because he's dead. It's almost like an out of body experience.
Yep.
So you have that, and then you playing as Chris Redfield
in a really fucking awesome segment.
Dude, okay, so when I started that segment, I was like, I feel like I'm playing like a Modern Warfare campaign right now.
Yes.
Like that's exactly what it felt like. Like I remember
straight out of Modern Warfare. Like
dude,
you walk up to the edge, there's a dude already looking over.
Yeah, the fucking town is on fire, and you're like,
yes.
All right, we gotta go in and take out these fucking motherfuckers.
Yes.
And it's just like I was like, oh, I'm playing a Modern Warfare campaign now. And this segment, dude, this is one of the best segments in the entire game. Chris is fucking locked, stocked, ready to fuck, dude. He is fucking loaded. You have so much ammo, and the weapons that you have are fucking way more powerful than anything you've used prior.
They make you feel so powerful and overpowered. It's just so much fun because you're the odds are stacked against you the whole game, and finally they're like, "Fuck it, dude, kill everything, do it."
So you go through first of all, I love the verbiage that Chris and his like team uses about like they call them bioweapons. Like they use very distinctive like almost militaristic terminology for their crew, which I really appreciate. Before you go in the village, there's like there's this organization dropping in as well called BDSM or something like that.
Yeah,
we'll call them BDSM for short.
And they're sending soldiers
in, which we'll get back to. So anyway, you go through the village, you fuck everything up. You're just fucking
the castle.
The
mold.
It's all fucked. So you get through this whole section, you're fighting lichens, you get to this area where you see, Mother Miranda's fucking, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, the mice, Megamycete, like all over the place. And you have this fucking, targeter or whatever, straight out of Modern Warfare that calls in like the fucking Hammer of Dawn from Gears of War. And you just fuck all these things up. You fuck the lichens up. You go through and then you get underground, which I thought this was really interesting because I was literally here earlier in the game and I couldn't do anything about it. Like it's like that little hidden section I was telling you about when we were in.
Yeah, it looks like a tree. There's like lines everywhere.
I was like, yeah, this tree is moving. Can I fucking kill it? Like way earlier in the game.
Turns out it was the mold.
Right. And which it's so hard. It's so dark when you see it. It's like you wouldn't have really been able to tell. But anyway, so you get down there and then you get like to like this layer, this labyrinth or whatever. And it's right before you rescue Mia, right? You find the real Mia as Chris. But dude, the implications from all of the notes in this lab are monumental for the franchise of Resident Evil. Like literally earth-shattering realizations for the franchise.
Let's start from the beginning. So you first find these books that basically describe each of the 4 children and what their powers are, which is cool to see because it puts you on like you have the knowledge now to know like what makes them tick, why, like, what is so special about all of them.
Right.
Following that, you find pictures of Miranda when she was a scientist working in the lab creating Eve.
Right.
Which I guess was her plan all along to try to bring her daughter back. She was working on creating Eve. So you see a bunch of pictures of her with Eve and a bunch of pictures of her in the lab with her, fellow lab mates. And And then, Josh, you find a letter.
Mm-hmm. This is the letter, period.
So what is it?
From what's his name? Oh my god, I literally just his name just exited my mind.
He's the creator of Umbrella.
Umbrella. Fucking fuck, man.
His name. It's also escaping me.
Spencer?
Yes, Spencer.
Spencer? Yeah. Guess what, folks? Miranda was there from the beginning, and it's more than a little insinuated that she's the cause, the reason, the research. Like, it's from her.
So she, after her daughter dies, she goes into a cave underground to try to kill herself, and she discovers the Megamycete. Her and Spencer become like partners investigating the Megamycete and what they could do with it, because she wants to use it to bring her daughter back. Right. Spencer wants to use it to, find the next level of human evolution. Right. They both kind of go off on their own paths. Right. And the letter that Spencer leaves to Miranda is essentially saying, like, I'm sorry, I kind of just disappeared. Right. I went off and started my own company called Umbrella based on the logo, or based on that symbol. Right. That was underground. And I know you had your own idea for what we could do with this stuff, but I have my own. Right. And we're actually working on something right now, which ended up being everything that happened at Umbrella. Yeah, literally the franchise. Like the zombies, like everything. So it's so here's what I love most about this part, right? You can walk through all of that and you can miss all of that. Oh yeah. You could not see any of that. Now, most people will probably look at it, right? But it's so there's such great environmental and interactive storytelling with stuff like this in this game, where it's like every piece of lore and note that you find feels way weightier and more critical than anything else in the franchise, really. As far as that, notes in horror games like this and lore is not new. But I feel like what is new is the level of detail and care and threadingness of all of them that happen with this. And it's a really ingenious way of giving a lot of expository information, right, to set up what is going to come in the future and explain what came in the past without actually just having characters deluge information to you. That's right. That's right. There's so many moments that are like that in this game. By the way, Chris does make a comment after you read that note. He's like, Spencer, what the fuck? Right. But yeah, there's so many notes that explain things or even just lines of dialogue that are throwaway. They say, hey, sir, we tested the mold here. It's completely different from the mold that was at the Baker residence. Right. It started here. Right. So it's the origin. Everything that's here, this is where it all started. Right. So, folks that played Resident Evil 7 and they're like, what is this mold shit? Well, these aren't zombies. What is this? This has nothing to do with Resident Evil. This game solidified Resident Evil 7 and made it all make sense and made it a better game. I agree. I 100% agree with you. It's just, it's so awesome. We could talk about that forever. But anyway, so that is, then you rescue Mia, the real Mia. You find out, obviously, again, confirms that the one in the house was Miranda, which is why Chris fucking obliterates her in the beginning of the game. And then you rescue Mia. Go ahead. But she asks Chris, right, where's Ethan? Right. And Chris tells her Ethan's dead. And she's like, well, not really. There's something that I've been kind of holding from you. Yeah. What you don't know is that Ethan is special. Right. And that is, in my opinion, what Mia has been hiding from Ethan as well, because Ethan himself didn't even know. Correct. So throughout the game, you're being told that Mia's hiding a secret. Right. And, I speculated that she was Mother Miranda. Right. Or, there was all these theories of what she was possibly holding. In the end, it was that Ethan is unkillable. Yeah. He's made of mold. Yeah. He's literally died. He's more mold than man. Exactly. He died at the Baker residence in 2017. Yeah. And now he's just invincible. Right. He's made of mold. Right. So there's that. You rescue Mia, you get out, you drop her off at this helicopter thing. Oh, wait. Well, hang on. It goes to a dreamlike sequence. You're right. Yeah. Ethan wakes up. No That's heart. Right. That's right. That's right. I was like, I'm forgetting a thread here. But yeah, you wake up as Ethan with a dream sequence with Eve, which from Resident Evil 7, obviously. And Eve's like, dude, you're not human.
Yeah,
And that's when Ethan discovers that he died and he is mold.
that's right.
And I thought, actually, Josh, before they said he was all mold, I thought he was going to turn into a Resident Evil zombie and you were going to play a zombie Ethan.
That'd be cool too.
That's what I thought was going to happen.
Yeah.
But because he starts waking up and his hands start turning black.
Yeah.
I thought he was going to walk over to like a river or something and look and his reflection would be a zombie. And I was like, oh shit. But no, he's just, like you said, more mold than man.
Yeah. And then you wake up after the dream sequence in the back of the Duke's carriage. And he is taking you back to the village, back to the altar. The village is fucked.
Which, by the way, you ask Duke, who the fuck are you and what are you? And Duke's just like, I don't fucking know, yo. We don't got time for that.
Yeah.
They just never reveal.
Yeah. But clearly he has ties. Like, he made a deal with Mother Miranda, clearly, to be able to operate in the area. Like, he knows the merchant. Like, he made a comment. He was like, what are you buying? Huh? Haha. It's just something an old friend told me. Or used to say, whatever. Like, so clearly he has ties to everything. But yeah, you ask him, he's like, I don't fucking know you. Like, and that's it.
Yep.
That's fine. Doesn't matter. So then you get out, you can purchase one last thing from some stuff from him, and then you go and you fight Mother Miranda.
Yeah, it's a pretty long boss fight. She takes a lot of hits.
Yeah.
She has a lot of different forms.
Mm-hmm.
There's like a spider one. There's one where she has wings.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she's pretty hard to kill.
Yeah. But all you need is the sniper rifle and a lot of ammo.
Yeah.
That's literally the only gun I used in her fight.
So you kill Miranda, and in her spot, Rose is there.
Right.
Pick up Rose, and you start leaving. You meet up with Chris, and that's when it goes into third person again. And Ethan is basically like, "We killed each other there. I'm gonna die. I can't do this."
Right. As he starts walking away or leaving, like, the area, right, because she's dead, he's like, his hand starts to like deteriorate or like almost freeze and crumble, similar to like every other boss and like the sisters and all of that, like that came before. So clearly he was tied to Miranda, right? Yeah. Which, because she was tied to all of the mold and all of that stuff.
And Eve,
yeah.
So he basically says, "Hey Chris, take care of my daughter, raise her well, do what you got to do," and he steals the igniter for the bomb that is on the Megamycete giant fetus. Chris is like, "Ethan, what are you doing?" He argues a little bit, but in the end, Ethan walks away with the explosive. Chris gets on the helicopter with the baby, gives it to Mia, and Mia's like, "Where the fuck's my husband?" Blah, 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 blah. And, they take off. Ethan pulls the trigger. The whole place blows up.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the end of the game.
That is the end of the game. But wait, no. You missed one other thing too.
What's that?
You're right. The information about the soldiers, right? This company, the BDSM organization, whatever it is, are using the soldiers that they dropped off in the town were zombies.
They're bioweapons.
So
Umbrella's cause the whole time was to try to create soldiers that could fight.
Right.
And Eve herself was actually, I did some research, Josh. Eve herself was supposed to be a bioweapon that let you win conflict without fighting, because she would be able to use psychic powers and mind control in order to take over the enemy, and they wouldn't be able to fight. They would just submit. So the whole game is about trying to create these bioweapons that help you win in combat. And one of the most basic forms of that, the zombie from Resident Evil, is out there fighting in a war, I guess, against this Megamycete thing. So
yeah. So there's that. And then there's credits.
The storybook
plays
again,
which is slick, with a song cover of the storybook telling, which is awesome. And then there's a post-credit scene. And this post-credit scene, first of all, huge implications, fucking mind-blowing shit, and also made me choke up a little bit.
So Rosemary is an adult now.
Mm-hmm.
It's like 2030 something.
Yeah.
And Rosemary's visiting her dad's grave. She still has the little book, the storybook, and she's wearing her dad's jacket, which he gave her before he left and killed himself. And she says she visits every year on Ethan's birthday.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, a CIA operative is like, "Hey, we found her," and he's like, "Hey, you need to come with me." And he calls her Eve or Evelyn, right? And which pisses her off because she does not want to be associated with that at all.
Right.
But she clearly knows what happened. She knows everything that happened at the Baker house.
Right.
She knows everything that happened in the village.
Right.
And she basically says, like, I have powers that even Chris doesn't know I have.
Yeah.
Which is telling.
So she has powers, probably psychic powers.
Yes. And she gets in the car and drives away with the and to go take care of something.
Mm-hmm.
And at the very end, you see the car stops and someone approaches the car.
Mm-hmm.
No idea who that is.
Yeah. Could be Chris.
No.
Could be somebody else.
Could be Chris.
Yeah.
Who knows?
So this is interesting, right? Because I feel like moving forward, right, with the franchise, they created a launch pad of where the story can go, right? Chris is going to be older now, right? Like you said in like our private text or whatever. I could see you playing as Chris partially, or maybe Chris is just like, you know, one of the main characters now, right? Because clearly Rose is like powerful. Clearly she's some sort of operative, like an asset that is in use, trying to fight probably that other organization, right? Or whatever it is that's going on, however it's evolved, because it's so many years later, we don't know yet. So it's interesting.
I mean, they have Rosemary like working as an operative because of her powers and stuff. So clearly there's some conflict going on.
It could be cool if you play as Rose and have powers. Like you could do interesting stuff, I think, with
some
the
BioShock shit.
Yeah, you could do some really interesting stuff with the franchise, while also maybe playing as Chris in more traditional elements. I don't know. Yep. But what I do know, Brett, is that I am excited for everything that this game set up, explained, and did.
Yeah. And I hope that we get some DLC, which we probably will, because Resident Evil 7 had a lot of DLC. I hope that this whole thing with Rose is not just DLC, and they do flesh it out as its own game.
I agree.
I don't want just...
She's got to take over the mantle.
Yeah, I want this to be Resident Evil 9, and you play as Rose.
Yeah.
I don't want it to just be a DLC thing. But there are some cool opportunities for the DLC. There's prequel stuff they could do. You know, there's escape room style stuff like the House Beneviento. So yeah, there's a lot they could do.
Yeah. Well, that comes to the end of our spoiler section. So let's transition out of that. Spoilers are over. If you're back with us after the spoiler section, beat the game first and then go watch that, I don't know, 45 minutes or 50 minutes that we just talked about spoilers. So yeah, we are excited given everything that we just discussed with where the franchise could go in the future. Absolutely love this game. Brett, final thoughts, things that you want to say before we wrap up.
I had a great time with it. If you're my friend and you're watching this, definitely get it, because you know we all probably share the same interests and stuff. You're gonna love it. If you're a viewer and you've never seen our channel before and you're questioning it, give it a shot. If you played Resident Evil 7, and if you're a subscriber of ours and you're a huge Resident Evil fan, it's a no fucking brainer. You're gonna love this game. It exceeded my expectations. I had a lot of fun with it, and I'm really excited, like you, to see where the Resident Evil franchise goes from here.
That's right. Well, everybody, that will do it for Hapticast episode 40, our live review discussion of Resident Evil Village. Make sure you like the video. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Make sure you share it with your friends. Follow us on all of our social medias, Twitter especially. Christian says in the chat, so buy the game no matter what. That's right. Buy the game.
If you're not poor, yes.
If you can afford it, buy the game no matter what. You'll have a good time, especially if you're a Resident Evil fan or have played Resident Evil 7. We love you. We appreciate you. Do all of that YouTube shit. And we will see you guys all next week for another episode of Hapticast. Goodbye, everybody. Later.
See you later.
Thank you for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Josh and Brett really need you too. I love them. So do it. It would be a shame if you missed more of their videos. Hit the notification bell too, so you know when there is a new upload.